Hi, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to take a look at the configurations of NIP6000 or Huawei's IPS. The configuration process, when we start doing the configuration or when we implement or when we deploy the IPS in our network, we follow these basic or general steps. First of all, we need to update the signature database, because if the signature database is not updated or outdated, if it is outdated, then obviously it cannot protect our network against the network attacks or the intrusions that can be happening within our network. Then we configure the signatures. Once we have the latest signatures available, then we need to configure those signatures through profiles. Then we link those signatures to the policies that we have configured. That means we are implementing intrusion prevention in our IPS. And finally, we verify and check the configuration and implementation that we have done on the IPS. The first step is updating the signature database. In order to update the signature database, we prepare, then we update based on whatever method we have selected, and if required, we can do a version rollback, or we can go to a previous version of signature database. So while preparing, we first check the license status, whether we have the license available or not, or our license is not outdated, it is still up to date, our license is still valid. Then, because we have to update the license, or we have to update the signature database, we need to check the free space on our device, whether free space is available or not, and we check the version as well, whether we have the latest version, because if we have the latest version, then we don't need to do anything. It's already the latest version, and if our version is outdated, then obviously we need to update. So after preparation, after we've done the prerequisites, then we do the update. Doing the update, we can do either an online update or a local update. Online update means that we are doing the update from the update server online, Huawei's update server. Or local update means that we have downloaded the signature database from the online server, and now we are doing a local update. This is normally done where our IPS is not connected to the internet. In highly secure environments, there could be a situation where one or some of our IPSs might not be directly connected to the internet. In that case, we can have a local update. So in case of online update, local update is simple. We have the database locally available, and we update or upload that database to the IPS. In online update, we can either do a schedule, we can have a scheduled update which happens every few days, week, or 2 weeks time, whatever schedule we have configured, or might be every day. And immediate update is when we want to do the update at that particular time. We can ask it to do the update immediately. And then version rollback, when we want to go to a previous database for any reason, if the new database is not functioning well or it's not going well, we should always have the capability to roll back. Version rollback by default, only at one time we can only roll back to one previous version, and if we want to go back multiple versions, we have to do multiple rollbacks one after the other, so that we can go back multiple versions. This slide is extremely important to understand the concept of implementation of IPS and the configuration as well. Basically, within a security policy, what we do is that we first define the conditions that are supposed to match. If these conditions match a traffic, or if a traffic, let's say, matches these conditions, then it means that this traffic is an interesting traffic, or this traffic needs to be checked through the IPS profiles. If the traffic matches and we have configured deny action against that traffic, then this means that this traffic is going to be blocked or dropped immediately without going through any other action. But if the action is permit, then this means that we want to check this traffic. We want to do further analysis of this traffic, and we just want to make sure that we want to allow this traffic, but before allowing this traffic or before permitting this traffic, we want to check this traffic against different profiles like antivirus profile, intrusion prevention profile, or web URL blacklisting profile or URL filtering profile. If the traffic passes through one or more of these profiles, only then the traffic will be allowed to pass through the IPS and either enter our network or go out of our network, depending upon which traffic or which direction the traffic is moving. So first of all, we need to understand the conditions, the action, and finally the profiles. And by the way, the signatures, definition, mapping, and selection is all done when we configure the profile. This is the first step of configuration. Here we are configuring a security policy or IPS policy. When we define an IPS policy or when we are creating an IPS policy, what we can do is that we can give the policy a name. We create a new policy, we give the policy a name, we can give it a description. It can be part of a larger policy group, and these are the conditions against which we can match traffic, or this policy can match traffic. For example, we can give the source zone, the destination zone, the source address or the region, the destination address in the region, the user identification, the service and the application, which service or which application this traffic belongs to, and the schedule as well. So if the traffic matches whatever conditions we have configured here, the traffic has to match all these conditions in order for the traffic to match this policy. And if the traffic matches all these conditions that are given here, then we can define the action. The traffic can either be permitted or denied. If the traffic is denied, this means the traffic cannot go any further, it will be blocked immediately. However, if the traffic is permitted, this means that the traffic can be allowed to move forward. However, it has to go through these profiles first. These are the profiles. We can have an antivirus profile, we can have an intrusion prevention profile, or we can have a URL filtering profile as we looked in the last slide. The traffic has to go through all these profiles if we want the traffic to be forwarded through the IPS. And if all these profiles allow the traffic to pass through whichever profiles we select, only then the traffic can move further and go into or outside of our network. So now that we have configured the policy, we have created a policy, and the policy is referring to different profiles. We need to configure the profiles. But before we configure the profile, let's take a look at the signatures. Different types of signatures that are available here. We can look at the signatures that we have. We go to objects, we go to signature, and we can look at all the existing or predefined signatures that are available in our system. If we want to look at the details of any of the signatures, we can look at its detail, can select a signature and look at the predefined signature detail, and we'll look at the basic information of the signature. We can see that this signature is related to Windows. Its category is Trojan. It's for all application, all kinds of application can match this signature. It is already enabled. The severity level is medium. The protocol is HTTP, and the default action or the signature action is block. If any traffic matches this signature, the action block is going to be implemented by this signature. However, remember that signature filter and exception signatures override this action. Their actions have higher precedence over than as compared to this action. But remember these, just look at these properties of the signature. These properties play a very important role when we select signatures in a signature filter. Excuse me. If we look at the predefined signatures, we can select their state. If you remember in the last slide, the state was enabled. You can enable or disable the state of any signature. If you checkbox the signature, its state is enabled. So you just need to make sure that a signature state has to be enabled. You can also do enable all the signatures all at once, or you can disable all the signatures all at once. But whatever configuration you do regarding signature enabling or disabling, you have to commit, you have to commit for that configuration to take effect. If you do not commit, that configuration will not take effect. This is the configuration roadmap which we are going to follow in order for us to configure the signature profile, or for us to configure the traffic profile. So first of all, we have to create a configuration file. We'll see how we create this. That is creating a profile. We modify the basic information about the configuration file, configure the description, packet capture, and malicious domain name filtering for the IPS policy. This is optional. The mandatory and the most important part of this configuration is to configure the IPS signature filter. Within the profile, we have to configure this signature filter. This is a required thing. So we create an IPS signature filter, and we can also configure, once we are creating this signature, we can include the signatures based on protocols, categories, threat direction, severity, operating system, etc. All these properties which we looked at in the last slide as well. And we can optionally add an exception signature as well. Once all this is done and we associate this profile, this IPS profile to the policy, our configuration is done. So this is how we create a profile. We go to security profiles and we select intrusion prevention, and we will look at all the intrusion prevention profiles that are already present, that are built into the system. We can either select one of these, or we can add a new profile. We can clone these as well. We can make a copy of these as well and then make changes to that, but these profiles are built in and we cannot change these. So we add new profiles. We can add a new profile. We select add here. We add these profiles. The default profile is, by the way, built in. These are not built-in profiles. This default profile is the built-in one, which will always be there, and these are the other default profiles. We cannot delete these. Let me correct myself. We cannot delete these, and we can only copy them and then modify them. However, we can add new profiles. We can add more profiles by clicking the add button here. Once we click this add button, we can create a new profile and configure its properties. So this is how we add a new IPS profile. When we click the add button, we have to define the name, give the description. We can enable attack evidence collection. This means whenever an attack is happening, it is going to capture the packets of that attack. This is kind of adds a lot of load on the IPS, so we should be very careful when we enable this. We should, because it adds a lot of load on the IPS, because it's actually capturing the packets, attack packets which are passing through the IPS. We can also enable the domain name check, which means that if there are any blacklist domains, it is going to check this against those blacklist domains. And important thing that is here is this one, the signature filter list, signature exception list, protocol anomaly detection. So this is the signature list that we create for this profile, which is going to include the signatures. This signature filter list is going to can include multiple signatures here. So let's see how we create a signature filter list. In order to create a signature filter list, we click add here, and once we click add, we can add different signatures into this signature filter. We name this filter list, signature filter list, whatever name we want to give. Then we select the parameters, or then we select the different properties here, whether it's a server-based signature or client-based signature, what is the severity level of the signature, what OS operating system, what application programs, what protocols. We can select all these features, and whatever features we select here are going to determine which signatures are going to become part of this this signature filter. Because remember, we looked at different signatures and we saw the different properties that each signature could have. So if we select a property here, every signature which has got that property is going to be selected and going to be inserted into this signature filter. So whatever properties we select here, all the signatures which match these properties are going to be selected and are going to become part of this signature filter. This is slightly difficult concept to understand in the first go, but it is important to understand that we do not select the signatures directly. We select their properties here, and all the signatures that match these properties, they are going to be selected into this signature filter. These are other properties that we can select, the category and the actions. If you remember, all these properties are defined for each signature. And then we can also configure the exception signature. If we want to add any exception signature, we can add an exception signature. We add the exception signature here, and here we can see which exception signature we want to add. We add the signature from the list, whatever list we select, we give the signature ID and we add the signature, and we can define an action for that exception signature. And as you know that exception signature is going to have higher precedence as compared to the action in the signature list or the action of the individual signature within the signature list. So we can have the allow action, which is the default. We can have the alert action, which means allow but with log. Block means to block. Block plus isolation, which means we block the traffic, and we also add the source IP to the blacklist, and we add the destination IP to the blacklist. So this is how we define or we configure the exception signature. And the important point to remember about exception signature is that whichever filter exception signature is part of, that in that filter exception signature is going to have the highest precedence of action. And as a follow-up procedure, we can, within the signature filter list, we can move the signatures up or down. If we have multiple signatures configured within a signature filter list, we can move those signatures up or down, because whenever traffic matches, whenever a signature is part of different lists, the signature which is higher in the list, that signature is going to be matched, or the action of that signature is going to be matched. So this is the brief follow-up procedure that we have to do. We can move the signatures up or down within the signature filter list. And finally, we can do the verification check on the traffic, or we can look at the logs within the traffic as well. We can look at the logs. If we go to monitor and we look at the log and we look at the threat log, we can see all the logs that have been generated by the IPS, and we can look at those logs and see what type of traffic is passing through our IPS and what are the actions and how our IPS is performing or securing our network against attacks. So this was about the basic configuration of IPS within our network. In the next video, we are going to look at the different implementation scenarios of IPS, and we'll take a look at the intrusion prevention mechanism or intrusion prevention implementation in USG firewall. So see you in the next video.